All right, so I'm going to do away with doing any kind of elaborate introductions because they're in your program. Here's Scott Haase.
Thanks, Jerry. I can use this. It's got a long enough thing on it. I think I'll be fine here. So I can stand up straight. Thanks for the introduction. Back in 2015, when I attended the Midwest Soil Health Summit that year, leaving the meeting, the big question that was on my mind then was, how can I do more of this stuff on my farm? Like the things Ket was just talking about, applying these principles of soil health. So, being there expanded some of my ideas of just what I saw as an option that was available. So I farm in extreme southern Minnesota. My place is about 8 miles north of Iowa. And I'm working with my brother Brent, and him and I together manage about 1,200 acres of corn and soybeans. And my dad is still involved with the operation too. He's kind of working his way into retirement and still manages a couple of his own fields on his own. He still helps us out once in a while too, especially during harvest. But I'm worried one of these years he's going to run south before we're done if it goes too late. But also back around this time in 2015, my farm had just re-enrolled in the Conservation Stewardship Program. And a thing I was really excited about then was I managed to talk my brother mostly and my dad into signing up for a practice in which we would seed 50 acres of cover crops every year for the next 5 years. And compared to the slow progress we'd been making, this seemed like a big step. But as the days and weeks went by, my enthusiasm started to wane a little bit when you remember some of the constraints. So in addition to working on the larger scale corn and soybean farm, I have my own homestead scaled business here, mostly as a hobby, but I sell a little pastured pork. And you start to remember all the commitments you have. I'm in the process of building a passive solar home, and you know all the reasons why it's going to be hard to implement this. So, as my hope faded, I had to come up with a way to get that excitement back. And really, it looked like I kind of had two choices I had to decide from. I could either stay the course with the family farm and accept the very slow progress which I was becoming accustomed to in regards to soil health, or try to build up my own business from the 10 acres I live on onto something more substantial. And that seemed like a very daunting task at the time, so it wasn't very appealing. But a couple of weeks later, though, I attended the Moses conference in La Crosse that year. And during the lunch session, I was walking around looking for a place to sit and pulled up a chair at a table, and Dr. Williams happened to be sitting there. And he had to leave almost right away, but one of his colleagues stayed behind, and as we were talking about some cover crops in my farm, I mentioned the Conservation Stewardship Program thing, and I found out about a program that's happening called the Pasture Project. And it's a larger effort to address soil health and water quality issues in the Mississippi Basin, but one of their initiatives is to work with farmers to get a cover crop in with their existing practice and to then graze that crop. And I found out Kent Solberg is managing that program in Minnesota and through SFA, so I caught up with him too later that day and started getting some of the details, and we ended up signing up for it. So from that point, I'll go into, let me back up here. So I mentioned the grazing thing. I have no experience with cattle, so at that point, I decided since we'd be getting some livestock on this 50 acres in the fall, I'd go ahead and buy a few animals of my own. So I spent part of my summer playing around, learning how to move fence and water, and tried to do some kind of small-scale mob grazing. You can't see the difference very well in the picture there, but this is at my neighbor's place on some hay ground, and you can see it was starting to grow back nicely a couple of weeks after the cows got off of it, but it was a good experience for me. I got some meat in the freezer. Now, I'm going to go through here just first of all what we did. But I'm going to go through it kind of quickly. If anyone has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer anything I can about the details. And I want to be clear, I'm definitely not an expert at this, so there's a lot of people here who are. But the details, of course, will depend on your individual situation. This is what we did, though. And after this, I'm going to focus more on how we can try to maximize the application of these principles and some things I learned going through this process. But we interseeded a blend of cover crop seed into the corn as it was about knee-high, and this was in June, back in 2015. And had some rain afterwards. Oh, that spreader there only covered 4 rows, so it took me about 4, maybe 6 hours even to seed this 50 acres. I have a better setup now that I'm going to be using next time. Anyway, the crop got established. It looked more like the slide on the left in some places, even a little more sparse in others, but 80% of the field, I'd say we had pretty decent coverage. And where I ran down some corn on the end, it really filled in nicely there. But as the crop matured and the canopy opened up, you can see that our cover crop started to green up. And by the time we brought the combine through it, I was still feeling a little bit of anxiety about getting the livestock on it because it still looked pretty sparse in some places. So I had some doubts about the amount of forage we were going to see. But a few weeks later, most of the fields started looking more like this. That rye cover crop just exploded in growth, and even my dad was really impressed at, he was surprised by it, by what we saw there. After harvest season was over, I used the fence system that Kent just described to us. Very good experience, easy to work with. I'm a fan now. It did take me about 4 days to fence this 50 acres, but keep in mind I was working by myself and didn't exactly know what I was doing yet. But now that all the runs are cut to length and crimped and strainers and everything, I'm pretty sure I could get this area fenced in a day next time I go out there. And then early November that year, we got a load of heifers from a cattle producer I was working with, who I've been in contact with. And the cool thing about this that I think is these aren't my animals, and this ground is actually rented too. We rent it from a very long-term share rent landlord who we've built a good relationship with. And we were able to keep those cattle out there for nearly 50 days that year. You can see we had some snow at some points, but all in all,